Hi guys, I wanted to pick up where we left off in class today. So before we ended our session, we were talking about standard form of a linear function. And just as a reminder, that's ax plus by equals c. And we have certain rules for the values of a, b, and c. So for example, a can't be negative. It has to be greater than or equal to 0. All three of these need to be integers, so no decimals or fractions. And the other rule that we looked at was only A or B could equal 0, but not both of them. So what happens when one of them is equal to 0? So what that looks like is you have a coefficient of 0, and 0 times a number is 0. So basically this goes away or cancels out, and all that's remaining is y equals a number. And that, when you put it on the graph, is a horizontal line. So you go to your y-axis, you find 6, and you're drawing a horizontal line through it. Notice that this is 0 slope, and every y value on the line is 6. And that's important. Every y value is 6, hence your equation y equals 6. So that is what happens when your coefficient for x is 0. What happens when b is equal to 0? Well, when b is equal to 0, and this should say y, not b, it cancels out, and all that you're left with is the number equal to x. And so this is going to be a vertical line. You go to your x-axis, you find your number, so in this case 6, and we draw a vertical line through it. This is a line with undefined slope, and what I want you to notice is that every x value on the line equals 6. Hence your equation x equals 6. So those special cases where a or b is equal to 0 create your special cases of slope, 0 slope and undefined slope. Okay, the other thing that we didn't have a whole lot of time to discuss in class today was finding x and y intercepts for standard form. So I'm going to rewrite standard form up here just so we don't forget. To find one of our intercepts, what we're going to do is substitute 0 for x or for y, but not simultaneously. Okay, so let's say we want to find our x-intercept. What we're going to do is replace, or excuse me, if we want to find our y-intercept, what we're going to do is replace our x value with 0 and solve. So 2 times 0 is 0. It cancels out, and I bring down everything else in the equation. And so then I divide by -5 to get my final answer of -2. So my y-intercept would be 0, -2, that ordered pair. I substituted x with 0. That's where that's coming from. Okay, if I want to find the x-intercept, I'm going to replace my y with 0. So 5 times 0 is 0. That cancels out. I bring down my 2x equals 10, and then I divide by 2 to isolate that variable. So my x value is 5, while the y value that I initially substituted was 0. When I take a look at the graph, you'll see your x-intercepts here. And this is important because we're finding our x-intercepts to be able to graph the line. So if I give you an equation in standard form and I ask you to graph it, your immediate reaction is going to be to find the x and y-intercept, because what you can do then is connect the 2 points and draw your triangle between them to calculate slope. So my slope for this is 2/5. Okay, so here's another example of finding the x and y intercepts And what you're going to do to find the x-intercept is replace y with 0. Okay? Right? Because my x-intercept is going to have a y value of 0, because if you cross the x-axis, any point on the x-axis is going to have a y value of 0. You're not going up or down any spaces. So 3 times 0 is 0, and then you have 4 times a number equals 12. Divide by 4 on both sides, and my x value is 3. So my x-intercept is 3. If I want to find my y-intercept, I'm going to replace my x with 0 and solve for y. So this cancels out, and I still have negative 3y equals 12, and I divide both sides by negative 3. So I have y equals negative 4. So my y-intercept is negative, 0, negative 4. My y value is 4. Okay. And I do think it's important for you to see the graph with these x and y intercepts. So I know I didn't erase everything here, but you can still see it. Again, when you cross the y or the x-axis, you're going to have all y values equal to 0. Everywhere on the x-axis, my y value is 0 because I haven't gone up or down. And the opposite is true of my y-intercept. The x value is 0 because you haven't gone left or right at all. That's why we're substituting 0 in the places that we do. Okay. So this is something that I had really hoped to get to talk about with you in class today. In the lesson in Edgenuity on standard form, the instructional video has 13 frames in it. So at the bottom, at the bottom of the videos, there's going to be these little boxes, and there's going to be 13 of them. And the 12th and 13th box, the instructor starts to talk about point slope form, and we haven't discussed point slope form. That's the next lesson in Edgenuity. So I would like for you to solve these problems in a different way. So if you're given an equation, a graph, and you want to come up with the equation in standard form, I don't want you to try and use point slope form because you have no idea what it is. I'd rather you write the equation in slope intercept form first. So remember, slope intercept form is y equals mx plus b. And looking at this graph, we can identify b is negative 3, and my slope is down 3 spaces and to the right 2. So m equals negative 3 halves. Okay, so we substitute those values into our formula and we have our equation. So now it's become something that we discussed earlier in class today, where you're trying to convert from slope intercept form to standard form by moving or adding 3 halves x to both sides. That's 0. And then I have 3 halves x plus y on the left-hand side. Now I multiply by 2, the number in the denominator here, to make my coefficient a whole number. So that 2 gets distributed to each of the terms inside the parentheses. And your final answer is down here, 3x plus 2y equals negative 6. So the instructor is going to go through this example and start out with point slope form, but I would rather you start in slope intercept form. And then the final frame or video in the instruction for today has this graph in it, and it asks you to come up with the equation of the line in standard form And basically, I'm going to straight up give you the answer. So this is the answer. This is the equation of this line. So frame 13 out of 13, the last bit of the instruction. And the reason I'm giving it to you is because I don't know if you can tell on the graphs, but your x-intercept and your y-intercept are going to be fractional answers. I feel confident that by giving you the equation in standard form, you're capable of finding your x-intercept and your y-intercept. So again, to find the x-intercept, you're going to substitute 0 for y because you're not going up or down if you're on the x-axis. I'm trying to draw a line, not a circle. Calm down. Okay. And then to find your y-intercept, you're going to replace x with 0 because if you're intersecting the y-axis, you're not going left or right at all. Okay? So that's how you're going to set it up when you go to solve for your x and y-intercept. Okay? And your answers are going to be fractions. All right? So that's everything that I had hoped to cover in class with you. If you come across anything that you have questions about during your lesson today on Edgenuity, just send me an email or sign up for office hours.